Hello, it's Imogen here with my friend and colleague, trauma awareness educator, Shay Seaborne, and we're here to continue our conversations on all things body intelligence. That's my work stemming from the Alexander technique, neuroscience, neurobiology, and trauma and stress. And today, the title of our conversation, we chose a question: can your goals actually reduce the quality of your life? Because we've been thinking about this and talking about this privately, but what we're really talking about and interested in is the topic of the neurobiology of goals and greed. So I think it would be good to just start by defining these terms. So welcome, Shay, and define these terms for us. Please.
I'm going to let the Oxford Dictionary do that.
Okay.
Because I don't claim to be the authority. The Oxford definition of goal is something that you hope to achieve.
That
sounds pretty
very simple, and I think we all understand that. Yeah.
So what could be wrong with that, right?
Okay.
And their definition of greed is intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food.
That's interesting. The selfish part. I guess the intense part I understood somewhat already, but maybe hadn't quite completely understood the selfish part.
Intense and selfish, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about in terms of food and greed. I don't want to get too sidetracked on this, but I never really thought of it as selfish in that context.
Resource grabs, right?
Yeah, I guess it's
compiling resources.
Yeah. So can you explain what happens to our brain, our nervous system, when we have goals, and especially certain types of goals around personal gain that might be greedy goals, we might call them, in terms of the definitions that we've just discussed, and you know, what happens when we have too much focus in this way?
Well, the ability to focus on achieving goals is reciprocal with the ability to connect with other people. So when one goes up, the other goes down.
You can't just have more of both.
Well, we wish in our age, you know, we take pills to hack our biology so we can, but actually in our culture, the importance of safe human connection is downplayed virtually all around us. We've forgotten how important it is. It's actually vital to our health and well-being. And so much of our culture separates us from each other and suppresses that information to our great distress. So when we focus too much for too long on achieving, attaining, amassing, resource grabbing, greedy things, we lose the capacity to connect with other people at the human level that is vital to our health. So we're harming our own health as well as our relationships with other people, which is harmful to them.
Yeah, and a couple of thoughts that came to mind was that it's not only detrimental to us because of the nature of the goal in and of itself, or that it's more than just that our focus on that is detrimental. It's our focus on that removes us from being able to make those connections. And I guess that goes with what you were saying about whether it's too much, because obviously there are some goals that we might want to pursue that could be, I've often thought of having goals as a very worthy thing.
Yes. Of course, there's nothing wrong with having goals, but even the best, even the highest intentioned goals can actually harm us if we focus on them too much for too long without remembering that.
So you don't have the balance.
Right. Yeah, because it is like a seesaw. So if you're focused that much on this, then this is going to go down. So you want to try to keep it in balance.
So you kind of touched on, so how might that affect our quality of life? You kind of touched on it, but more specifically.
I wanted to read that quote from David Bedrick.
Oh, yes.
Psychologist David Bedrick, because he says it so well. Greed carries the seeds of our disavowed needs. If we ignore our deeper needs, we can never be filled. So it can become a vicious cycle where we're trying to fill something. We don't know what it is because we haven't gone into that distress to figure out what is the problem and what needs to be resolved. So we keep trying to fill with achieving, accomplishing, acquiring, conquering, rising above. And those things might give us a temporary, well, first, they take our focus off our misery, and they can give us a temporary lift, especially we can get some dopamine hits by smashing the competition, but that's not what our bodies and brains really need. It might feel good to the distressed brain, but it's not what we need to be healthy and have a sense of well-being.
And it's not going to be lasting in any way, because you'll then just have to achieve more and
it's like
beat more of the competition. And what do you do if you get to number one? Because you can't, how can you improve on that? So then it gets really tricky.
Yeah, it's all hollow victories, really, because each one of those, each step up that ladder of the success that we admire here in America is a step toward disconnection from the self and the people around you.
So we've mentioned different types of goals. So there are some goals that aren't greedy, but I think the manner in which you approach them and the intensity, and you also reminded me also the duration and the length of time you pay attention to them, might still have a, shall I say, negative effect on our brain, body, nervous system.
We see this all the time in like the volunteer and nonprofit sector, where people are in it to do good for the betterment of society. They volunteer, they work low wages and long hours in nonprofits, and they can, like anybody, focus so much on the importance of this work and the intensity of it and the need for it that they forget to take care of their own needs and the needs of people around them, especially the safe connection. You can't feel safe in your body if you're anxious about what you're doing all the time.
Right. I have a note on my list to what did the baboons teach us that's relevant here? And I know you have a nice story for us that will explain this question.
I'm so glad you brought up the baboons.
Yeah, the baboons. Yeah.
These are specifically the Kikarok baboon troop at the Masai Mara Reserve that were studied by Dr. Robert Sapolsky, who goes there every year for decades to monitor their stress hormones and observe their culture. And to make it a very short story, the abusive males at the top of the pecking order all died out when the troop got a hold of some tainted food, because they, being aggressive and focused on their greed, satiating their greed, which is insatiable, they didn't have the connections with the other baboons who otherwise would have taken care of them and helped them, nurse them through their illness, and they would have recovered.
And presumably they were the ones taking that food for themselves and not sharing it out.
Yes. Yeah, they ate more of the tainted food in the first place, and then they didn't have the safe connections to support them through the illness and help them recover. And that changed. Long story is, it changed the entire culture of the baboon troop, and it's a fascinating video clip we're going to put at the end of the blurb online, right? So people can see this. I really recommend watching this. It's about 6.5 minutes, and it's just so revealing about the hierarchy and the greed and what it does to a culture, and how quickly a culture can change when the opportunity is there.
So a cautionary tale that we can learn from the Kikarok baboons, right?
When you say that.
So is all goal orientation is not bad for us, right? It depends on the type of goal we've discussed.
Yeah, whether it's focused on helping others or focused on achieving and accomplishing. And there's nothing inherently wrong with achieving and accomplishing. I mean, we all need to do that. This is how we pay our bills and get our car maintained and all those things. But to focus too much on it, even when it's a beneficent, type of goal, it's going to be harmful to us as individuals and the people around us.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, even if like self-care and well-being is your goal, if you get too, I could just imagine a scenario where you get so overly obsessed with that, anything that takes you out of the routine to do the things to look after yourself, or something has the wrong ingredient in it that could just, is not as healthy, could just really activate you and be very stressful. Because you're so
hyper focused.
It's very, very worthy and very important to look after our well-being and how we look after ourselves. And you could see when it becomes like this very goal-oriented to-do list, rather than just being in the process and knowing there's give and take and looking at a more big picture.
Right, and that healing isn't linear, so you're going to make these mistakes, and it's all part of that. If we focus too hard on the goals, then we're often engaging what the term you called taught me, end gaining.
Yeah, this is a term that comes from Alexander technique jargon or terminology down the ages since it was developed, and it refers to when we're so focused on the goal, we don't pay attention to the process or our kind of internal experience of being as we move toward the goal. There's an interesting quote from one of Alexander's books. I forget which one. That's the founder of the Alexander technique. He was born in the late 1800s. Wow, the technique is about 120 years old now, something like that. Anyway, but he wrote something like, if you use this technique, which is to do with a process that helps you be more present and at ease in yourself and more coordinated, for instance, as you do the things you do, that if you were a thief, it could help you become a better thief. So I know what he's getting at. It was like he wasn't trying to say this is going to, make you a better person, or that it can be used for in any manner of ways, activities, but I wonder if the awareness that you would have might help you make a different choice. That you might be not so goal oriented to being a thief anymore, if you have more awareness and are aware of yourself in the process of doing the things. It might not change anything, who knows, but
I think so.
But I think it's interesting to think about, or it's making me wonder, when we are not engaging, when we are in the process, the steps, and being present to how we reach the goal, whether that actually in and of itself helps the intense focus on the goal itself as being the be all and end all, that it would actually shift that, because we're making the process more important than reaching it. But we know that that's the means whereby we'll reach the goal. That's a little long-winded, but I think you got what I'm saying.
Yeah, that kind of awareness can bring us back to the present rather than to be focused on the end and the achievement. And when we're present, we can be in our bodies, and then we can be present for other people. And that's the connection that helps us stay well and achieve wellness.
So in connection with that, what can we do? I'll leave that to you. What can we do to help us not be goal-oriented in an unhealthy way?
Well, first we need to remember that it is a reciprocal, and that we need to come back. But also, I would highly recommend pausing. We talk in our work a lot about the power of the pause, and just if you notice that you're feeling stressed about your goal, or you feel a little distant from people lately, take a pause and look at what's happening and feel what's going on in your body, and check in with yourself. Is this what I really need to be doing? Is this the kind of goal that's supporting my well-being and my nervous system and my connections in my community?
Right. It can be an opportunity to keep reassessing. Like, is this still supporting me? Is this still what I want to do? Is this still the timeline that I need it to happen in? Is it or any and everything? And what do I need to do to look after myself as I achieve or move toward this goal?
Sometimes the answer can be very disappointing to our cerebral cortex when the body says, "Oh no, I need a day off, a total day off, horizontal."
Yeah. And if you can, that would be the best thing to do. So, yeah. Anything else before we finish up?
I just wanted to mention the that human beings naturally seek strong attachments and co-regulation. This is a 200 million year old need of ours as mammals, and we need this kind of support from each other that fosters a sense of partnership and keeps us from treating each other like objects being done to. And really important is that positions of power should be filled by people who have a collective minded approach, where they are interested in improving things for the widest number of people possible, not themselves. Those people are a blight and should be removed from their positions of power. Go back to the factory for some retraining and some co-regulation.
Indeed. And maybe they should come to our Foundations of Regulation program.
Do us all a favor.
Yes. But seriously, if anyone is interested in working with us and learning about more of the processes that we use and the concepts that we find helpful to help us reduce stress, help us regulate our nervous system, or help support the regulation of our nervous system, we have a 6-week program called Foundations of Regulation, and the next offering of that is starting on November 7th. So I'll put that information under the video as well. So unless there's anything else, we will be back soon with another conversation on body intelligence, neurobiology, and trauma. So thanks, Shay.
Thank you, Imogen.